Hi everybody, Josh the RV Nerd with a helpful tip video for you here today. The temperatures are dropping, the leaves are turning, and we are approaching cold camp season here. So I've got a quick list of about a half dozen tips to help you get through the cold camping cycle. And if you appreciate these little tip videos, if you have other ideas, let me know. Hit the little like button on the video and feel free to share these into some of your favorite Facebook groups. And real quick, on that note, we are quickly approaching the time of year where those full-timer RV Facebook groups are going to suddenly be flooded with people posting stuff like, I don't understand why I'm having freezing problems with my RV. I was told this was a 4 seasons camper. I cannot say enough. The best way to cold camp in your RV is to avoid the cold with your RV if you possibly can. I know that that's not necessarily in the cards for everybody else, but also please understand that this whole 4 seasons RV concept is a marketing myth. But that being said, if you are going to be in the colder weather with your RV, this is some stuff that can help you get through. And with more people turning to RVs as kind of a survival necessity that maybe have been priced out of housing, I think that today's message is something I'm hoping potentially avoid some significant loss of life disasters. Let's talk RV space heaters. I cannot believe how many expert guides made by all sorts of different people, even put out by some RV dealerships, are saying these are a great way to save on propane and cost in your RV. These things are a good way to get you killed. Despite coming from a sales-based organization, one of the things that I want you to take away from this is that RVs are not built like a house, especially when it comes to wiring. The grade of wiring in an RV is not at all like you have in a home. It's not even close. And suffice to say, the wiring, the receptacles, the breakers, etc., they are not made to handle things like even a modest 1500 watt space heater. What will happen, not immediately, but after a little while, like if you go to sleep and you wake up, that thing will be melting things like receptacles, making loose connections, basically working its way to causing a fire in your RV, which is a real thing that has happened in the past. Another myth I hope I can bust real quick is size doesn't tend to matter when it comes to these things. Like you see this little space heater. I know I have a big head, but to give you a size reference, there you go. You think, well, this is much smaller. It can't possibly pull the same amount of juice as some of these bigger things. This is a 1500 watt space heater. And if you read the tag down here, it's exclusively 1500 watts. So even though it has what looks like a low, medium, high setting, this will always pull big juice all the time. And this is more than an RV system is designed for. And you might be thinking, but yeah, Josh, I watch your videos all the time, and you always see how these electric fireplaces are essentially a space heater. Does that mean I can't run those in the winter? There's a really clutch key detail difference here, though. This is something that they knew was going to be there. It's not an object that somebody placed in it after the fact. And that electric fireplace is completely on its own circuit, separate from everything else. And it is made to be just below the recommended long-term load use rating of the wiring and the receptacles in these RVs, which again is nowhere close to residential grade. And don't even think about plugging a space heater into something like a power strip. I don't care if you're in an RV or a home. That's just a good way to burn the place down. Here's another thing people don't tend to consider when it comes to using things like electric heaters in an RV in a cold camp scenario. Think of the location of your thermostat. Your thermostat is in the main cabin, in the main body of the RV. If you provide a bunch of supplemental heating in here and you warm the air temperature up in here, you're going to trick this thing into shutting off. And if that doesn't tell your furnace to run, you're not putting air basically into your hot air, into your underbelly, protecting things like your holding tanks and your water lines. That's the builder. It's like it's expected that you're going to be running the furnace really hard. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. And you might think, sure, but isn't that why I have these holding tank heaters right here? This is another one of those things where you really need to educate yourselves, because you probably can't rely on a salesperson to know the differences on these things. I don't like anything I just said, but for consumer protection, that's a reality. Most tank heaters in the RV industry are 12 volt, little 10 by 10 square warming pads. The 12 volt one should be called tank warmers. The ones that will really do a better job of heating are 110 powered heating blankets. And you don't tend to find a lot of those. Like Jayco North Point offers them as optional. Pinnacle has them as standard, but almost no RV builders even offer a 110 tank heater solution that is capable of giving you the extra heat in those really more extreme cases. But again, guys, I get it. I know that there's some of you out here who are literally just trying to survive right now. If you are in that situation and you need extra heating, and this is the only thing that like you can afford or whatever, make sure you're getting something with smaller wattage. It won't produce as much heat, but it will hopefully help keep you from damaging your RV and potentially putting yourselves in danger and putting yourself out of your home situation. So 400 watt, 700, 750, something like that will be okay. But you also have to understand, you don't really have a good idea of what else is on that same circuit. So you really want to use the smallest thing you can, as little as you can. And for the love of all that is holy, do not use power strips with these things. Not to mention the challenge that an RV is a smaller space than a house. And you have to keep these things really clutter-free, which is hard to do in an RV, because if you end up with something tossed over it like that, you're going to have a problem fast. All right, moving on from there, one of the first things that I think you're really going to need is dehumidification. And I don't think most people realize that, because most RVing is done in a more pleasant weather scenario, and you never have to worry about dehumidification. That's because you essentially have a roof mount dehumidifier already built in. RV air conditioners organically dehumidify to a pretty hefty degree, but you lose that in furnace mode. And one of the first symptoms that you have a problem and a need here, hello, bald ghost in the window, is you'll end up with condensation on the windows. That's the number one thing people see, so it becomes something that you're very quickly able to be aware of. And that's kind of just the very cherry on the top. Like, think of it like the iceberg scenario. You're only seeing 10% of the problem. There's always moisture content and humidity in the air. But once it finally reaches the point that it starts building up and collecting on stuff, you're only just then kind of aware of it. And a lot of people say, oh, you just need dual pane windows to handle that. That fixes it. The composition of that window has absolutely no bearing on the moisture content in the air. Dual pane windows might collect a little bit less condensation, but you're tricking yourself into thinking you've actually fixed the problem. You need a dehumidifier, or probably several, because kind of like Sting, every move you make, every breath you take, every time a salesman opens his mouth in an RV, a bunch of hot air with a bunch of moisture is introduced, and it builds up and it builds up. And if you don't control and collect that, it will start to find little places to go. No matter where it decides to make home, you're going to be unhappy about that. And keep in mind, you may never totally get it under control. Your goal here is just to minimize how much of a free reign that it has to the maximum degree that you can maximize. But let's move on to the next one, and let's forget RVs for a second. Have you ever driven over an overpass, and there's a sign on that bridge that says something like, bridge may be icy before the rest of the road? For very good reason. Cold air exists not just on top of that road, but also below it. Well, guess what, Carol Baskin? You've got the exact same situation going on with any RV over here. So if you're really trying to keep this thing protected from the cold, you should really consider some kind of skirting. And naturally, like anything, there's different ways to do this that have some wildly different price points attached to them. The low to no dollar way that you'll find done very often around my little small town farming community here is the old stack of hay bales or some old OSB boards that are cut and skirted around this thing to block the wind. I don't like that method, and I know there's going to be people watching this. Man, I've done that for years. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. I don't recommend it because of the fire aspect of it. RVs are already something that, man, if there's a fire exposed to them, they already go up pretty fast. I don't need to add more tinder to that equation. The step up from there is something like a sort of like thermal, when I say sheeting, it almost like foil, you know, that people they'll put all around the bottom of an RV to block the air from getting down there, and then they basically just use like HVAC tape, like double-sided HVAC tape, and they just run a strip of it down the RV and they put that foil stuff up. And it'll work okay, but the problem with that foily tape stuff is it's not really made to come off, and you're always going to see this like ugly tape signature on there unless you get some Goo Gone and you feel like getting, you know, your shoulder sore scrubbing on that thing for so long. It's going to be really hard to get that crap off of there. Walk around a couple used RV lots in areas that get cold weather, and I guarantee you'll find at least one of them somewhere, and you'll see what I mean. Stepping up a little bit, the thing that was kind of the go-to for the longest time were snap-on skirt systems, where there's these big, heavy thermal blankets that you literally install. I think I had a stroke. Install button snaps on your RV or little thumb twists to hang these blankets up and hold them in place. Again, they work pretty well. Those things, it depends on the size of your RV. You could be looking over $1,000 for a package of one of those for your RV, pretty quick and easy. They do work. They don't tend to be too problematic. The thing that I don't know that I love about them is they require you to like screw in, punch little holes in all over your RV, and you're now creating, I don't know, 50 new potential miniature leak points around your RV. I will say I haven't really seen those be too much of a problem looking at used RVs over the years, but conceptually, kind of spooks me. The newest method that's out there are these new inflatable air skirts. The thing that I like about them is they don't require any actual install in your RV. When they fold down, when you stow them away, they occupy very little space. They have very little weight associated with them. You just bring them out, pump them up, and they squish under and snug under the camper, and there you go. I like the idea of that. The downside to this is it's probably the most expensive way to accomplish RV skirting that we've discussed. Probably twice the cost of the snap-on thermal blanket method. But I really like the fact that I don't have to leave any scars or signatures on my RV. Now, we've talked about different methods of skirting. I would really, really love it if anybody watching this who has experience using different methods, if you would share your experience with the class, please. Moving on, I don't care what the sticker on the camper says. These things are not exceptionally well insulated. And I don't care if you're talking entry level or really high level. Monster true high R values in the RV industry don't exist. Nothing is R40. That's not real. That's a theoretical, we made this up number, hoping that it would entice you to buy it a little bit. And a lot of the builders do that. But my point with this is be prepared to go broke burning propane. You are going to run that furnace hard. It is going to eat propane the way I eat pizza. And I mean, let's be real, I can put it down. This is one of those things where having a steady supply of available propane, like knowing how to get a hold of that will be a very important thing for you, especially like if you're like, oh, this place closes Sunday. You better be checking Friday or Saturday if you need to be filling your propane bottles or swapping them out or whatever you want to do. Also keep in mind, you hear, we're conditioned as a society, a bigger number is a better number. So if a furnace has higher BTUs, that means that it's a stronger furnace that heats more. And that's true. But how does it do that? It requires fuel. Higher BTU furnace will burn more fuel. In the same way, basically, if you think about it like this, think of an engine in a pickup truck. A higher liter engine will tend to eat fuel more quickly than a smaller liter engine. There's obviously variances in there, some Venn diagram overlaps, but you get the point. A 40,000 BTU furnace is going to eat a lot more propane than a 22,000 BTU furnace, but it will provide more heating to your RV, so you have to decide which of these things is most important to you, and can you afford to keep it fueled? Another thing a lot of people do not consider when it comes to first getting into the cold camp kind of lifestyle is you're going to need to figure out how to get water to that thing. And I found a lot of people who are newer to this, they think, what are you talking about, stupid? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna attach my water hose to my spigot and turn it on. What's the problem? One of the main, cobweb on the face. God, it's gonna feel like that all day. One of the main reasons a lot of places close up is because when it gets cold, the frost line goes down into the ground and they want to protect their water lines and they shut off the water servers, and that pretty much ends most of the business a lot of people are going to have. So there are a lot of places that just won't have water available for you. Now, there will be some places that are open, they've taken extra measures, but you will also need to take extra measures. You will almost certainly want something like a heated water line to keep that whole darn thing from freezing up. Depending on the kind of facilities you have available, if you do happen to find a place that has like all year on-site sewer, you might want to get a sewer hose, like heated sleeve. That is a thing that exists out there, because chances are when it's 2 feet of snow, you're not going to be hitching up to the truck and dragging it up to the dump station or something like that. So you need to consider how you get water into this thing. And it's one of those things that I've always been kind of amazed as I've gone through my career here, how many people say they're going to cold camp. And I say, okay, what's your plan for getting water to the RV? They go, oh my God, I just never thought about that. Kind of an extension of the RVs are not insulated the way the sticker makes you think thing. You have all sorts of spaces on this that you would be really wise to stuff up and insulate any way you can. Entry doors, windows, skylights, vents, you need to plug this stuff up. But the good news is there are a variety of products already in existence out there to help make this step of the process a little bit easier. And what's really cool is you get to double dip the benefit on this, because if it helps keep the heat in the RV when it's cold, it will help keep the cold air in the RV when it's hot. So if you are camping in an extreme hot area sometimes, or like travel nurses, they're like, man, I don't know where I'm gonna be on my next contract or whatever. They might be in a hot situation, they might be in a cold situation. This is something that you can get to keep the RV more comfortable no matter where you're calling home today. And I told myself I wasn't gonna do this, but I gotta get on my soapbox real quick and talk about one of the biggest pieces of bullcrap misinformation out there as it relates to RV windows. I don't care if you're looking at this entry-level camper or one of these here highfalutin fifth wheels. The fact is, the windows on these things are good for two things when it comes to insulation: jack and squat. There's a whole world of absolutely made up garbage, false RV R values when it comes to things like the roof and the floor. One of the things that is fairly consistent are your sidewalls, mostly because the material and the thicknesses are very constant. RV sidewalls are generally going to be somewhere between like an R7 to an R9. These windows, however, these are an R0.7, effectively a thermal hole in the wall. Go RV shopping in the spring or the summer, or, if the RV's climate controlled, put your hand on this, you can feel what I'm talking about immediately. And you just may think or say, yes, but what about those darn fancy, expensive dual pane windows that I heard about are already paid for? Aren't they better? No, not really. Because what you think you're buying is a hollow, gas-charged residential thermal pane window. And that's not what you're getting, with almost no exceptions. I'll mention those in just a second. What 99.9% of us are getting is a bonded dual pane window. That means 2 sheets of glass glued together, direct contact, no hollow, not even air gap between them. And that takes it from a 0.7 RVL value to a whopping R1.017. Now, people say, yes, but they get rid of the condensation. No, they don't. They mask it for a little bit longer. You still need a dehumidifier. What they are excellent for is noise canceling. They will drown out a lot of part noise. They're really good for that, but they provide no significant R value gain. If what you're looking for is truly the best window out there, you need to look for something that has the dual pane Euro style windows, which are very hard to find and more expensive. These things have over 2.5 times more R values than even the dual pane thermal windows that you get on 99.9% of RVs that even offer them. That information, by the way, is not something I just made up. That came straight from the people who make the windows. I was actually able to get contact with some of them a while back and got that info straight from there. There can be a couple little exceptions to this. There's always somebody who watches this and says, yes, but my $500,000 Newmar diesel pusher had real thermal pane windows. Yes, when you're spending $500,000, some things do change a little bit when you get there. For the rest of us, the 99.9% rest of us, dual pane windows in pretty much all towables and almost all motorized are what I just described. And I'm not making this video today to try to ring the cash register for some reason. You might notice I'm not leaving Amazon affiliate links for some of these things that I've described. I encourage you to go out and pick your own things. Whether you buy something or not, we stand to make absolutely no additional dollars off this. And I'm not necessarily trying to discourage someone from doing this. I want you to be better equipped and understand the reality of the cold camp scenario before you get into it, and it's way too late, and now you've got a problem. So if you found this useful today, if you appreciate the information, click the like button, subscribe if you haven't, or don't, whatever you feel like doing. And again, provide me some more requests, ideas. What kind of other things would you like to learn about? And I'll see what I can do. Short of that, until next time, take care, stay safe, have fun, and best wishes from Bishes, everyone.